All right. Thank you, everyone. I think we should begin for those who have already been waiting. Before we start today's masterclass, please allow me to do some introductions today and also to take you through the agenda. For today's session, we will have the masterclass and we will follow that up with Q&As about the masterclass. And then we will also have a general Q&A about the program and admissions, etc., whatever questions you may have. Today, for presenting you, I'm Vatsal Chandra, and I look after the MBA programs, recruitment and admissions in the London campus of ESCP. Today, we've been joined in by two special guests. Firstly, by Jenny. Jenny, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, of course. My name is Jenny Gao Hao. I'm from China. I'm currently in Berlin campus, actually.
Lovely, thank you. Yes, Jenny is our current student, so please, if you feel free to drop your questions and Q&As for Jenny as well. And then moving on to the special guest for today, Professor Roberto Quaglia, who is a professor of strategy and management at the Paris campus. Professor has had his career in the industry for a while, where he started off with McKinsey and Co, and then, of course, taught across different programs at ESCP and also served as the dean of the Torino campus. Last but not the least, of course, you yourself, Professor, are an alumni of the school, having graduated from the MIM. So, Professor, I'll hand it over to you just in a second because I know we've been joined by Jomana as well. So, very quickly, Jomana, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience before we start the masterclass?
Yes, of course. Of course. Hi, Roberto. Hi, Vatsal. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. So I'm the MBA program director, of course, for all campuses. Very
Love,
quick.
lovely. Thank you so much. And without further ado, Professor Roberto, over to you for the very interesting masterclass for today. Thank you.
Hopefully, it's interesting. Thanks very much. So we're going to have half an hour together by my instructions, and I chose a topic for you today that we normally use to introduce leadership in the MBA, and eventually we'll give you some interest in continuing the discussion later on at school. So my topic today, I called it the Monday morning story. And it's actually a story that introduces some of the challenges that we have in organizations. A way to frame and see organizations is that of a neural system. It's like, the brain, right? And indeed, it is like the brain of the company itself. If you think about all the people and the brains that are involved in making decisions every day, the neural system of an organization, it is made of people, right? And this is a main challenge for leaders, because you can imagine, if you think about your own brain, how much work it has to do to get coordinated and organize actions, right? Think about this guy on the right that is about to kick a ball, and think about on the left, you have your neural system that needs to give input, make decisions, and coordinate that little action of kicking the ball. It's a major effort of coordination. And that happens in companies as well. I mean, companies are made of many people, and they all have their own points of view. They all have their own brains. And in leadership, we need to make sure that all those decisions happen in the most possibly coordinated way, right? And so when we talk about leadership, this is a major challenge. Leaders are facing this type of challenges, which is making sure that the collective actions are happening in the correct way. So I normally frame this with this story, which is the Monday morning story. And why so? Because, when we observe people working in companies, we see something that looks strange, especially if you look at it taking some distance, right? When you look at it from the Monday morning, right? I think that all of us can empathize with the fact that, I think you're about to consider an MBA, but I think almost all of you have had some work experience, yeah? And when you walk in the corridors of a company on Monday morning, yeah, I'm not saying you see sad faces, but maybe less happy than elsewhere, right? And at the same time, if you look at Saturday mornings, right, people, once they wake up, because it depends what they did on the Friday, but they tend to be much more energized and happy, yeah, and they are free to do whatever they like to do on a Saturday morning. So this is the dilemma that we are confronted as human beings before the leaders, because if we had the chance to have that level of energy on Monday mornings, we can only imagine how much productivity we could gain in companies, right? So let's explore a little bit this dilemma, Monday versus Saturday, and try to draw some lessons from that in terms of what we can do in order to enhance performance in companies. So I would start by, getting your perspective on the Mondays and the Saturdays. I prepared this little poll for you, which you can access using this QR code on the left. So if you point at it with your phone, you will be asked 2 questions. The first one is, which are the emotions that best describe you starting of the working week on Monday mornings? Yeah. And the second one, the same question about the Saturday morning. And I would ask you to use just one word, if you can, to synthesize your emotions so that we can then project a little word cloud. So please go ahead. Very good. So let's see the word cloud. Yeah, your description of the emotions on Monday morning. So the most frequent one is dread, emptiness. Yeah, there's some positivity, but there's boredom, excitement, curious, sleepy, lazy, tired, sad, and anticipation. That's another frequent one. That's good. Yeah, and let's see the Tuesday, the Saturday morning now. The Saturday morning has the most frequent as positive, energetic, happy, energized, positive vibes, yeah, joy, lightness, relaxation, excited, peace, relief, and that's our class today. But I can tell you that it's not very different from the population if you would do this on the typical employees of any company, yeah, and that leaves us with a little bit of a puzzle, because on Monday morning, in a way, we experience all those emotions of low energy, anxiety, boredom. We feel trapped. Why? Because we are told what to do, how, when to do it. Yeah, and somehow, if we extend this poll to the population, we will notice also some levels of insecurity, feeling at risk, needing to be fake, not authentic. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we are paid for it, right? Which makes it even more sad. Yeah. When we look at the Saturday morning, and so what do we see? We see that people are energized, they are determined, they're happy, they are smiling. Yeah, they feel free. Yeah, they feel in control of what they do, on the how, on the when to do it. They feel more self-reassured, authentic, safe, and they are not paid for it. Yeah, and that's the challenge. I mean, if you think that you're paid to be there on Monday morning, whereby on Saturday morning, let's suppose that you dedicate your Saturday morning to play tennis. Yeah, you sweat, you put a lot of energy, you even pay your trainer, but you get out of that training lesson at tennis with a smile, and this is a major dilemma if you put yourself in the leadership shoes, yeah, because you have the means, yeah, you can pay people, recruit them, promote them, give them a nice office and perks and everything, but you cannot make them as happy as Saturday morning, where they are, free to choose what to do, and they even accept to pay for doing anything, yeah. And that's a major dilemma. So let's investigate this major dilemma with the level of ambition of making as much as possible Monday mornings looking like Saturday mornings, right? So to prepare for this discussion, a little moment of reflection. So think about, who the people around you that you met in a corridor of a company or at the tennis court on a Saturday morning, which would best embody, the feeling of Saturdays and Mondays. Just visualize one or two people that would embody those emotions. Now, try to imagine, those people that embody the emotions. If you can transform those of the Saturday into, those of the Monday into Saturdays, how much value creation you can generate for your company in terms of self-motivation, getting people energized and resilient, more trust, confidence, connection, curiosity. This is the job of a leader. Yeah, if leaders can get that energy into productivity, they can boost the performance of a company. Yeah, but how come? Yeah, what's behind this dilemma? What makes the difference between a Monday and a Saturday? So some people would argue that it's a question of what. Yeah, on Monday morning, you're asked to do things that you don't like to do, whereby on Saturday morning, you're free to choose to do things that you want to do. So how many people in the class believe that it's a question of what we do on Monday and Saturdays? So please use the QR code again, and we see the feeling of the audience. And we'll say that finally wins, 60-40, right? You are, yes, it has to do with what we asked to do on Monday mornings rather than freedom of doing whatever you want on Saturday morning. Well, if we approach this question with a scientific standpoint, so looking at research and what comes out of science, actually the answer is no. Yeah, it has not to do with what. Yeah, so, and just to give you a feeling of why is no, it's because people get energized by a very diverse range of activities. Yeah, some get energized by using their body, for example, in sport. Then Saturday morning, they decide to go to the tennis lesson, for example, or they do gardening, or they do bricolage, even heavy work where they sweat and they put a lot of energy. Yeah, some others, they get energized by using their brain. They read, they write, they learn, they teach, they organize holidays or dinners, they manage people, right? And others, they are energized by a mix of the two, activities such as volunteering, traveling, or what else, right? So it's not the type of activity that makes the difference, right? So it has to do with something else. About what? It has to do mostly with the how we do it rather than what we do it. And if we go and look for which are the drivers of that engagement and motivation, we can synthesize them in three categories, which makes the difference between a Monday morning and a Saturday morning. Yeah, one is the levels of autonomy. The other one is the mastery. So how much we feel that we are learning and developing ourselves on Saturday mornings. And the third one is all the elements that have to do with the purpose, why we do it. Yeah, let's investigate them a little bit. So autonomy. So what makes a big difference on Saturday mornings is that we are free to choose what to do. Yeah, Saturdays energize because we have the autonomy on the what, the how, and with whom. Yeah, we can exercise self-direction as a natural inclination. Yeah, like children, then play and explore. Yeah, so human beings, they are built, yeah, with that inner drive and curiosity. So on Saturday morning, we feel free to follow that inner drive, right? Of course, managers can argue that autonomy requires anyway some levels of support and direction, which can be true, yeah. But when support and direction is too much, then people feel like in a cage. They don't feel free enough. They don't feel autonomous, yeah. So what we learned is that the more autonomy you allow on Monday mornings, the more they will look like Saturday morning. So autonomy is a major, major driver. And leaders today, more than what they did many years back, they are working quite a bit to allow higher level of autonomy to people, of course, trying to contain possible elements of entropy, yeah, or, you know, problems that autonomy can bring along with. So autonomy is one. The other one is mastery. Think about the tennis lessons, right? You're ready to sweat, even to pay for it, provided that you have the feeling that every tennis lesson, you learn something, you improve yourself, you develop your skills, yeah? So Saturday is energized because we enjoy developing ourselves and improving our abilities. This is a natural drive of people. Since the age of 0 onwards, our curiosity and that drive have taught us to walk, to talk, to interact with other people, to learn skills and mastery them, yeah? So the mastery journey requires, of course, support. So in a company, you need to be supported because from the day one you enter to the last day, you've learned a lot of things and you have expanded your level of abilities, yeah? But that journey needs to be designed in ways that are coherent with your levels of autonomy and coherent with your levels of ambition in terms of achieving mastery on some levels of skills. Yeah? Results, performances are natural consequences that are consequences of the mastery acquired. Yeah? Whereby companies that focus too much on results, yeah, they tend to kill that natural drive, whereby companies that focus quite a bit on the mastery journey, they have performances as a consequence and a gift, yeah? So allowing and stimulating the mastery is a very powerful habit of leaders, yeah? And the last one is purpose, yeah? Saturdays energize because we connect to meaningful objectives, whichever they are. You know, for some, a tennis class could be a path towards winning the club championship or the national championship. For others, it's a way to keep fit. For others, could be a social activity to meet friends. Whatever the purpose, yeah, that purpose drives energy, yeah, and make you feel good, yeah. So we need a purpose, and in companies we need to share a purpose, yeah, to have our own purpose for professional activity and to share a common purpose within a collective group of people towards engaging our energy in a specific direction. And purpose is a choice, yeah. It's a choice which could be individual or collective, like in a company, yeah. So leaders have the challenge to move people beyond the contractual type of give and take relationship and engage them towards a common purpose. So this autonomy, mastery, and purpose, it's the key to read what's boiling in the pot and justifies and explains the difference between a Monday and a Saturday, yeah? But why is it so challenging? Why not everybody and every company invest more in autonomy, mastery, and purpose? And this is the question to be asked for you as a student, because when you look towards learning more and joining an MBA, you want to, you know, have I mean, you expect to learn how to do it, right? And let's look at those. So autonomy. Why is it so difficult for leaders today to allow higher levels of autonomies on Monday mornings? Because they feel they lose control of what they do. Some, they might feel useless, yeah, because if you are autonomous and you take initiative, which is my role as a manager, yeah, maybe they feel that the The delegates, they don't have enough skills, so they fear the consequences of being held responsible of actions of your team members. Yeah, they feel that the delegates are not committed enough, they are not engaged. So you see, it's a set of fears that are behind. So as a leader, when you want to promote higher level of autonomy, you need to use all the appropriate tools to make sure that the managers and the coordinators and the people involved with the people that have the power to allow more autonomy, they overcome those fears, yeah, and they feel comfortable with allowing a higher level of autonomy. And then there is the mastery. So why people don't focus more on mastery? Because mastery is a journey. Think about how you learned to ride a bike. Yeah, I think nobody of us has learned to cycle without falling. Yeah? But falling in a company means risks, means costs. It means being held accountable for errors. Yeah. But at the same time, if you don't allow your junior team member to have autonomy, to try, to fail, to give him feedbacks or her feedbacks, and with that journey, making sure that next time we do it a little bit better, if you don't allow them to fail, you don't have the mastery journey kick-started, right? So that's another fear, the fear to let them fail and pay the consequences as a coordinator, a supervisor, a manager, or even a leader, right? So you tend to refrain them from taking too many risks. And every time you refrain them, it's like, you know, your kid on the bike, you keep holding the bike, you will never fall, for sure, but you will never learn, yeah? And the purpose, same type of things. It's a fear at the base, yeah? So deciding what not to do, it's a measured decision. So when you make explicit the purpose, yeah, what we are here in this company for, it means that at the same time, you are defining what not to do. And people tend to be reluctant to rule out opportunities and focus somewhere, because you never know that maybe there is an opportunity that could be gold, and therefore before ruling out that direction, let's keep it in play. By keeping it in play, you kill the focus, you kill the drive, and you don't make explicit your exact purpose, so for your year in, and so that people can autonomously decide whether they want to join in or join out. Yeah, so you reduce degrees of freedom, etc., etc. So you see that those three categories of elements are very, very important for making sure that making sure is a very strong word, but for transforming as much as possible the Mondays into Saturdays. The next question I anticipate is, are there any recipes for ready to use? Yeah, and here you will learn it in the MBA. Yeah, that when we talk about leadership and people, there's very few recipes. Yeah, there are some, and of course some and some you will learn, but as a leader, you will not make the difference on applying the recipes because they are so available that everybody will use them. Yeah, the difference you will make it in finding solutions for challenges for which there's no real recipe ready for use, right? So there's a lot of good practices, yes. Recipes that make the difference, I would say no. Yeah, it's a question of making choices that better fit a specific context. And on this level, I would open up the real leadership challenge, yeah, and which is something that I think it's worth the while entering a further education type of journey, because leadership is confronted with what we call adaptive challenges, yeah, and that makes the major distinction between a leader and a manager. Yeah, let's make that distinction. So what is the role of a manager? The role of a manager is a role of coordination. It's a role of diagnosis a challenge, yeah, and finding the correct solution for that challenge among a set of options that exist. Yeah. And a very good manager is very useful in a company because he can diagnose and then choose the correct therapy, like a doctor, right? Leaders are needed when? They are needed when, for that diagnosis, there's no preset protocol of therapy. So we need to make one. Yeah, we call those adaptive challenges. Challenges that for which solution, if they exist, are hard to find. Yeah, the diagnosis, the problem definition is very hard to define, and recipes or solutions or therapies, they are not known. Yeah, or there are many, so there is a decision to be made. Yeah, or they don't exist, so we need to collectively co-design them. So leaders are those that they don't have the magic wand. Yeah, the magic wand is the recipe or the therapy for a given diagnosis. Leaders are those that they are there to lead a group of people to co-design a solution for a collective challenge. Yeah, and those are called the adaptive challenges. Yeah, and adaptive challenges are framed and approached in a very different way than technical challenges, which is putting together a diagnosis with a therapy. Yeah, adaptive challenge, they require making a distinction between what we know in terms of what we could do with the current knowledge. Yeah, that's the technical component of the challenge, and a distinction about what we don't know how to frame. And then we go and explore practices that we could do. But finally, the solution is not the solution. It's a solution which better fits that group of individuals. Yeah? And this is the main challenge of leadership, because they are not the people that come up with solutions like this, because they don't exist. They will sit down and co-design them. So the challenge of Monday versus Saturday is very much an adaptive challenge. It has some technical components for which we have solution and therapies ready to use. For sure, in an MBA, we will go over all of them, but we have an higher level of ambition to prepare you to be leaders, therefore being able to frame adaptive challenges and lead a co-design process towards the solutions. Yeah. The toolboxes are many. Yeah, here is an example of, I just put in a slide some words, just to tell you that you're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of science behind that we can leverage. Yeah, but of course, given the time available, which is almost over, I would say it's also already over, I cannot explore them too much. Maybe I just pick one to give you a feeling of what's behind, and then, you know, we open for Q&A. One, for example, of the elements that leaders, they focus upon very much, especially in the last 10 years, is the acknowledgement that, you know, you can consider an organization like a fishbowl. Yeah, you can work on the fishes, but you can work also on the water of the fishbowl. Because if you have very great fishes, energized and motivated and everything, and you put them in a toxic water, they will die. Yeah, or at least they will not perform as they could. Yeah, you have many different metaphors of that, like the best football players, they don't make a team necessarily, right? And there is this guy that about 12, 13 years ago, he's a medical doctor, so he's a real scientist about medicine. And that guy made a major step forward in understanding trust in organization. Why? Because as a doctor and a scientist, he has isolated the molecule of trust. So this protein that is in our brain that measures trust levels. Yeah, and this is something which is very useful for us in management. Why? Because up to that moment, we had good practices about, you know, what to do in order to increase trust levels. But we could not measure the impact of any practice in terms of a very objective measure of trust. Since Dr. Zak has made his studies, we could start to say, okay, if you do that, trust levels go up. If you do that, trust level go down. So we made a list of the behaviors, the collective behaviors that leader can promote in order to enhance trust levels, right? And this is the result, right? So he has an acronym which is called oxytocin, which is, by the way, the name of the molecule in the brain. Yeah. And he basically studied that and said, okay, in a company, if you are a leader that want to make your Monday morning more similar to the Saturday morning, right? You should work on those collective behaviors. I make some examples just to have you to have a feeling of what's behind. So for example, ovation. Ovation, it has to do with recognizing the contribution of workers in an organization. And this is something that in most companies, it happens naturally, in others, less naturally. For example, you know, they would rather give you a negative feedback, but not confirming with a positive feedback when you're doing great. Yeah. But in order to feel that you belong to a high trust level context, you need to receive ovation as well. Expectations, for example. You trust an organization if expectations about your performance are explicit. So if you know upfront what it takes to be considered a good performer, right? And this is a challenge because not always it happens, yeah? Because, you know, a lot of managers, for example, they have it difficult to make explicit exactly what they expect from you. And again, there are some fears that if I make it too much explicit, maybe I don't have degrees of freedom later on to, you know, change the rules of engagement, so on and so forth, right? Then you have yield and transfer. Yield and transfer, they talk very much with autonomy. Yeah, yield occurs when you are autonomous in terms of how. So expectations are clear. Roberto, I want to do this on Friday, and this is what I expect. Yeah. How you do it, you're free. So the more you give yields, the more you give autonomy on the how, and the more your Monday becomes Saturday. Yeah. Transfer is very similar to yield, but even more drastic. So it's not just autonomy on the how, but it's also autonomy on the what. Yeah. So in that case, my level of delegation is much more high level. Yeah. We say something like, Roberto, this is the overall purpose that we have. Yeah. Now we have a set of challenges. Up to you to decide what to do first and how. And I feel more autonomous, right? Like, Roberto, we need to make sure that you keep being fit up to the age of 80. So it's up to you to decide how to use on Saturday mornings, whether you have a walk, a run, a tennis class, or a golf course, whatever, right? You see, transfer. Openness, caring, invest, natural. There's other behaviors that are very, very important for developing trust. As we said, my role today is to present a challenge, and I chose the challenge of Monday morning and Saturday morning, give you a perspective of how we frame those type of challenges and why they are important in a company, and then some snapshots of what we could learn together about how to approach those challenges, how to frame the diagnosis, and which are examples of, let's call them therapies that we can have, or tools that we can have to approach them. So I would close my talking now and open the Q&A. And sorry, I just moved to the last one, which was this one. Now I close the presentation, which is my wish for you to have plenty of Saturday mornings, right? So back to you and open for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Professor Roberto, for that very interesting class and also just the link between Saturday and Monday. I think a lot of us were curious when we saw the title of this masterclass, and I've spoken to some of the students who are here also in the audience who were quite interested and curious about this. So I will open the floor for Q&A. Right now we don't have any, but in case anyone has any questions for Professor Roberto, please feel free to send them to us in the Q&A. While our participants share a question, I have a question for you actually, if that's okay. And I think one thing that I would like to probably know more about with regards to adaptive challenges and leadership is that how do you think can leaders balance that tension between maintaining stability and driving the necessary change when it comes to adaptive challenges? Because adaptive challenges would obviously require a shift in organizational culture and mindset. So how can leaders balance that, stability and that change?
Yeah. So, leaders are equipped with a number of tools and in the metaphor of the doctor before, therapies, which are available, tested, scientifically tested. And this is the stability, they need to be prepared, knowledgeable, and ready to use everything which is available as of this morning, right? But as we're working with human beings, there's set a number of challenges that go beyond that, either because we haven't discovered it yet, yeah? So you need to co-design a solution which is good enough for the collective group of people, or because solutions don't exist. For example, if myself and my family, we need to decide where we go on holiday this summer, yeah? This is an example of collective decision making. We need to co-design a decision because there's no book that will tell me where to go on holiday this summer. Yeah. So in a company, whether we need, for example, to decide whether we raise some salaries, we lower others to balance the accounts, yeah, there might be some principles that we can apply, but at the end of the day, we collectively, we need to agree about whatever criteria that we will eventually use, which is the best for us. And that's another example of co-design. No book will tell you in that specific context what to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer. And we also have someone from the audience asking a question. Caitlin asks that, hi, I was wondering about your thoughts on managing employees and freelancers or self-employed people alongside each other. In some countries, there are a growing number of freelancers, and I wonder if this changes dynamics in companies and between colleagues.
Yeah, yeah. So to address this question, I think we should put in place, put on the table two things. First of all, the concept of transaction cost economics. Yeah. So when you manage a freelance, as it does not belong to an organization, it's like managing a law firm rather than a law department within the company, right? There are some costs that has to do with connecting external parties. Yeah. So for example, when you work with your colleague in the law department, you just move to the next office. He knows already everything about the strategy of the company. You don't need to set up an invoice or a contract. So you don't have this type of cost of transaction, right? Whereby when you go to a law firm, you have all that. Yeah. So one aspect to consider is this one. Another aspect to consider is the habits of people. Yeah, managers are reluctant to use external people just because they need to be more specific about expectations. We just spoke about expectation as a driver of trust, right? It takes time and energy for a manager to be explicit about what do I expect from you, yeah? Which is the alternative, is that I give you an order at 10 o'clock, then I look what you do at 11, I redirect you a little bit, yeah? It's less efficient, it's more convenient for some, okay? So freelancers now. Freelancers, I mean, if you ask me in the perfect world, everybody would be a freelance. Yeah, it means that even employees, they would behave as freelance because they become more autonomous. Yeah, freelance is an expression of autonomy. Yeah, So in the perfect world, there would be no difference in managing a freelancer and an employee. Which is the trend? The trend is towards that ideal world. Why? Because transaction costs are going down. Today, everything is digital, everything is online. 50 years ago, I would send you a letter. Today, I send you a WhatsApp message. It takes a split second. So transaction costs are going down. And we see that with more and more freelance or different forms of engagement with people, because transaction costs are down by the effect of technology.
Right, lovely. Thank you for that answer, Caitlin. I hope that answers your question. We have another question from Hannah. Hannah says, thank you very much for the presentation. For leaders stepping into an obviously toxic environment, which aspects of autonomy or mastery or purpose should be prioritized first?
Yeah. So, trust is a very important element of a non-toxic environment. So I would answer that question by, I would focus on trust. Yeah. So now trust is a learning journey. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. But you can accelerate that learning journey. And to accelerate that learning journey, first of all, you need to frame trust as a relationship between developing trustworthiness. So you need to deserve trust. Yeah. And second, the decision to trust other people. So you see, you need a person that decides to trust another one, and the other one that increases as much as possible is trustworthiness. Yeah. So if trust is priority one, within the two, then trustworthiness is priority two. Within the priority one is priority 1.1. And then helping people to overcome the fear to trust more other people is priority 1.2. Right? Now, in developing trustworthiness, there's recipes. Yeah, we know how to do it. And the first book published on that is called, I think it's called The Trusted Consultant. And in that book, they presented the theory on how to develop trustworthiness by saying trustworthiness is a function of 4 variables. Yeah. And then they call it the trust equation. So I would tell Anna that, if she's interested in that, having a go on, I mean, I cannot explain now the theory because otherwise it's not a Q&A anymore, but trusted advisor and the trust equation, it should give you an insight on that. And of course, this is something that at school we would cover because it's step 1. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. We do have one more question coming in, and I'm just conscious of time. But the question here is, I think it's a 2-part question. So the question says that in terms of trust, for example, it is hard to trust a new employee because we are afraid that they might drop the ball. So the first part is, as an employee, how can we quickly gain trust from our employer? And the second part is, as an employer, how can we trust our employees? Should we practice full transparency? What are the risks involved in terms of the employer leaving the company, etc.?
Yeah, it's very linked to the other question. So so let answer the other question a little bit more. So this question is answered. So the trust equation. So how can you increase your trustworthiness as an employee? Trust equation has four variables. The first one is credibility. Yeah. So it's your competence, your CV, your track record. Yeah. The second one is reliability. Not only you're competent, but I can trust what you promise. You deliver what you promise. Yeah. Then there are another 2 elements which are less intuitive and where normally we are weaker. One is intimacy, and the other one is self-orientation. And this is where normally there are more problems. Why? Because what does it mean? It means to be authentic. Yeah. If you screw, admit, and move on. Yeah. If you don't know how to do it, be candid and vulnerable. Yeah. and let them know that you need help. Of course, nothing that is not a free ride, yeah, because if you are vulnerable and you declare that you are incompetent on something, you decrease your credibility. Okay, but you might increase your reliability. So it's playing with those variables, but which is the key direction. The direction is that you should, as much as possible, give priority to the long term rather than the short term. Yeah, if you say a lie in the name of credibility, you will pay it very soon. Yeah. So a good strategy is to be authentic, yeah, candid, yeah, and ask for help when you need. Yeah. Then of course there's much more, but just to give you a feeling. On the other side, how can we make sure that managers can trust more, or people in general can trust more? Here I can share with you a statistics that we normally use to convince people to trust more as a strategy, but then there are some methodology. But let's just go to the numbers. So if you map the overall population, you will find that there are about let's make it simple, 81% are either givers or matchers, and 19% are takers. What are givers or matchers? Are people that trust first. Yeah. So they naturally give you trust as a first thing. Matchers, if you trust me, I trust you in kind. So they respond, they match. Yeah. Takers, they take advantage of you. So you would be better off not to trust them. Now, what happens? That if you have here a decision to be made. Shall I trust people or don't trust people? Right? If you trust as a default, what happens? That with 81% of the population, you establish a fruitful, collaborative, performance-driven relationship. Yeah, because givers, they love you straight away. Matchers, they match. Of course, you risk to be taking advantage from the 19% of takers. But if you don't trust, you protect yourself from the takers, yeah, and you give away of the positive of the 81%. So the way to frame it is not about whether or not shall I trust first, but is how to trust first and risk manage the problem of the takers. Yeah, and there are some good practices in doing that.
Lovely, thank you. We have one final question coming from Louis. So Louis has mentioned that he's noted down autonomy, mastery, and purpose as the 3 key drivers for making our everyday as productive as Saturdays. He says, I was wondering if we may not be more focused on Saturday mornings because we can focus on a task, while Monday morning requires us to manage our responsibilities. However, focusing on a task seems in tension with autonomy. How do we balance focus and autonomy?
Let me think about, I'm not sure I fully understood. What I understood is that you see a tension between a focus on a task, doing something, and responsibility, which requires levels of autonomy. So for you, Saturday morning, the tennis course is task-based, and on Monday you feel the responsibility.
Yes.
Well, I don't see that tension very much. Why? Because the responsibility could be for your own task or for tasks of others. Yeah. So when it's for your own task, then there's no difference in the way you frame it. When it's on the task of others, then I understand the tension. But again, on Saturday morning, I made the example of tennis. But there are people that on Saturday morning they go and climb the Mount Everest, or they are the skippers of a sailing team or the captain of a football team. They have responsibility, which is collective responsibility. So again, I just want to bring this to the discussion that we had by saying that it's not the what that makes the difference between Monday and Saturday, but it's rather the how. So if you apply the how on the task or the responsibility with higher levels of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, then it works for either the task or the responsibility challenges.
All right, thank you so much. I think at this point, if anyone has any questions for Jenny in terms of her experience, or Jenny, if you want to quickly take a minute and probably just give your background and how's your experience been at the MBA so far, we can probably end with that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Gao Hao. I'm from China. I'm in Berlin campus now, and it's my second semester. First semester was in Paris. I'm going to Madrid soon in June. So far, I'm really enjoying my MBA study. And I will give you some reasons. So first, it's really driving me out of my comfort zone, including talking in front of the camera, and also geographically. So out of my own country, region, I think it's a really bold move. As Professor Roberto mentioned in the master class, it's a choice. So you need to make a choice and you need to think about the consequences. But I think that's your side to your part to decide. And considering what also Professor Roberto thought about us, and I was thinking about how we can make every day like Saturday morning. So actually today morning during the class, I was asking some classmates, they are so shining, you know, for them, I think they really have every day like a Saturday morning. I asked them how you can balance, prioritize, how you can engage in every class, and I don't see you are tired. I even asked them, do you sleep? So I think today this masterclass gave me answers too. So I hope to meet you. And if you have any questions, you can message me via LinkedIn or email me. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jenny. So that brings us to an end for today's session. Big thank you and gratitude to Professor Roberto for this wonderful and interesting masterclass. Hope we all have our Mondays as energized as our Saturdays. Any final words? I would like to invite Jomana for any final words before we wrap up.
Thank you, Vatsal. Well, I was very quick at the beginning. I think I'm going to be very quick at the end. So it was great having you, Roberto. Thank you so much for giving this masterclass. Vatsal, thank you for moderating it. And Jenny, thank you for being with us. So hopefully we'll see everyone in the next masterclasses that are scheduled in the next few weeks.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks
Professor.
everybody for joining. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again, everyone. Just a quick reminder, our next admissions deadline is 14th of March, so just a week from now. So if you haven't already, please submit your application and then keep an eye out on your email for upcoming masterclasses. Thank you so much again and have a great rest of the weekend. Hope you have a great Saturday and a Monday. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.